some reason as a parent, or when you're seeing stuff that's really upsetting, you think like, no, I don't want my kid to see that. I don't want to upset them. Hey everybody, my name is Nick. I'm a director living in Taiwan, and today I'm here with Vincent, a very talented video editor. And we are talking about the film The Silent Forest by Chien-Nien. So this movie is based on true events, and it's about a sexual assault that happened at a school for the deaf in Taiwan, and it's a true story. Did you hear about this?
Yes, I actually have heard about this
Really?
news before.
Yeah, it's a really sad story, and then it's made even sadder by the fact that when you're watching it, you realize that this actually happened.
In Taiwan, it's actually happening right now.
It's still going on?
It's still going on. I think it was revealed that when the movie was released, there are still a lot of cases that's happening in that school.
That's really upsetting. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the parts of the movie that is really upsetting as well, is like when about how like the inaction of like the different institutions, like when they find out about this sexual assault stuff, how they don't do anything. So the film begins with a boy that's going to the school, and he's like new at the school, and when he first gets there, he thinks like, oh wow, this is a really great place. Finally, I'm accepted for who I am. And he sees a girl that is being sexually assaulted by all of the boys at the school. And it really upsets him, and he kind of doesn't know what to do. And eventually he decides to tell the teacher that he really trusts. And that kind of opens up this investigation that reveals this huge pattern of all these people getting assaulted at the school.
Yes.
So like you said, it's just really upsetting when you realize how much it's happening and how long it's been going on and how many people know and don't do anything. So it's a really, really heavy movie, and it covers a lot of really heavy themes. And I think it does it in a way that's really, it's good because it's talking about a serious topic, but it doesn't talk about it in a superficial way. It talks about like all the different layers of kind of all these different things that can happen. So like the first one is that it's really hard to do the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing I noticed is that when he first sees the assault happening, it's not like in a Hollywood movie where he's like, hey, what are you doing? And he like beats up all the kids, right?
Yes.
He doesn't know what to do because he's a kid. And I think a lot of people can relate to like when you see something going on, it's not like you're going to be able to do what you think you would do in your head. Yeah.
I think what I love about this movie is that they are not trying to blame anyone. They actually started the investigation very early on the movie, I think. But after that, they are not trying to go for a more thriller kind of movie. Yeah. They kind of just show the frustration they are facing in the school, what kind of things are happening in the school, and what the students are going through.
These people are at a school for the deaf, so they're really vulnerable to this kind of abuse because they have a low self-esteem already. And I think people that are abusers really prey on this kind of person because you can make them feel like they don't have any other choice. So it's easy to tell them, oh, well, don't tell anyone, because if you tell someone, then you can't go to school here anymore, and they want to go to school there because they like the school or whatever. And I think the way that they show that in the film really makes you think about a lot of different assumptions you have about people, because you think like, okay, why does she keep going back? And she's getting assaulted there, but she's like begging her grandpa to stay at this school. So I think there's a lot of different dynamics in how to stop something like this from happening. It's hard for a kid to kind of differentiate like the seriousness of like threats. So like for us as adults watching the film, like getting made fun of, we think of as not that big of a deal. But as a kid, it's like huge. It's a huge problem. And so she would rather be abused at the school than be made fun of in the real world. Because like when she's there's a scene where she's in a movie theater and people are like she can't hear, so people are asking her questions and getting upset with her because she doesn't know what's going on, and she feels super embarrassed. And to her, that's like worse almost than getting abused in the school. But like, and you think when you're watching, you're thinking like, it's not even comparable. Like you can't even compare those two things. But for a kid who doesn't know, like those two things can seem one can seem worse than the other.
I think at that age, there's a lot of peer pressure, or
yes,
she tried to fit in.
Yeah.
Or he tried to stay in the group, in
Yeah.
the school, right? So it's hard for her to imagine a life without people that she assumed that understands her.
Right.
And I think there's also a problem of boundary. I think at that age you don't understand, especially about sexual themes.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to understand what kind of boundary they want to set for
Yeah.
themselves.
So one question I had is like, do you think this would be a good movie to show to teenagers?
I do think it's a good movie to show to the teenager. I think we should not always trying to, how to say it, infantize our children.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that a word?
Infantilize.
Infantilize our children.
Yeah.
I think that's the big problem in our school because we don't talk about that. And when things happen, we try to cover it because
Yeah.
we think that, oh, it's not so serious. It's not. And I think our children learn from this.
Yeah.
I think they see us doing, we try to minimize the problem.
Yeah.
And we didn't try to understand what's happening in their mind.
So you think probably it's a good idea to show this to, let's say, like a high school and kind of have a discussion about like situations that are happening with them? Because that's what when I watched the movie, I immediately thought like, if I had a high school sex ed class or something, I would show them this movie and be like, okay, have a discussion and be like, what's going on here? Like, why is this wrong? Like, what's like, you know what I mean? And I think that the kids would be super uncomfortable and parents might not like it.
Yeah, actually, that would never happen in Taiwanese school, actually.
Yeah.
We need proper sex ed immediately in our school.
I mean, it's funny because you would think like, if you were to show this to a bunch of kids and talk to them about it and say like, okay, why is this bad? Like, what's going on? Why is this abuse? Like, what should you do if you get into this situation? That's all like good stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
But for some reason, as a parent, or when you're seeing stuff that's really upsetting, you think like, no, I don't want my kid to see that. I don't want to upset them.
Yeah.
But it's like, would you rather have them watch a movie of it and think about it or encounter it? If the kids see the adults being like, I don't want to talk about it, then if it happens to them, they're not going to want to go to you and tell you about it because they're like, well, the adults think this is dirty and bad. And I did it.
It's their fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did it. So if I tell them, then they're going to be mad at me.
Yeah.
There's like a more open dialogue and more conversation about this kind of stuff is really important. So I think this movie is really an important movie for people to see. It's filmed a lot like a horror movie in that like the angles they use and kind of the sound cues they use and just like the stylistic techniques that they use throughout the film, kind of the color grading of it all is like a horror movie. Yeah. And they set things up like the first time he sees the assault, it's like it reminded me of like a horror scene where like he's in kind of a safe location and everything seems like it's okay and you kind of feel like something's off and then he sees something and he walks over and so they set the pacing of it in a way that is like a horror film, but actually what you're seeing is like way worse than a horror movie. And I just think that's pretty clever because it I mean, it's manipulative, but all movies are manipulative. Yeah. And so it's manipulating you to be disgusted by this, which is the right emotion that you should have, I think.
And it also draws your attention.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think there's one scene that's very early on in the movie, is that they have this really long shot in the school, and they just slightly pulling it out, and the sound just goes in, and it's just the...
Yeah, it's in the very beginning, before you know what's going on. Yeah. He sneaks out in the middle of the night to meet the girl, and they go somewhere. Yeah. But like as he's walking out, in the background you hear like people kind of struggling or doing something, and you kind of think like, am I hearing that? Yeah. Or is that real? Is that like part of this movie? Like what is going on?
Play that sometimes. What is that?
It's really clever because then later on you realize, oh yeah, that was somebody being assaulted too. So so I think the techniques that the filmmaker used are really interesting and very it makes you feel really just uneasy really and upset. Yeah. So this movie won Best Sound Design, which I think is pretty well deserved because I really liked the way that they used sound in the film. I mean, it's interesting because it's about deaf students, and I think they kept the sound cues pretty minimal. And I think a lot of filmmakers, they want to keep their movie going, keep it engaging, so they want to keep music, because music makes it go faster or whatever. But I think a lot of times it's much better technique to allow like the sound of the space to be heard. You know, and I just think I liked how they did that. Like, there's obviously like music cues, but they use a lot more of like the natural sounds of where they are, and you know, they play with things being louder and quieter. And like you said, like that sound cue of the people getting abused off in the distance that they don't really call attention to, like that's like a really subtle technique that, you know, you could have taken out of the movie would still be fine. But it just adds that extra layer, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They actually did a complete remake of the song, I think. I
really
in the music, because for for hearing impaired people, it's hard for them to, even with the equipment they have, they can't distinguish the direction where the sounds come from. Oh. So they kind of did some special effects on the song. So
really?
It's actually a complete remake of the song they recorded on the song. Actually, it's quite interesting. And
that's interesting. So they made it like more like mono?
They tried to imitate what hearing impaired people can hear.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
But it's hard for us to see because it's hard for us to imitate actually.
Because we don't know.
We don't know. We will never know.
Yeah,
yeah, we will never know.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, you saying that makes me really want to see this in a movie theater, because I think I watched it at home, and I think like, you know, with speakers or whatever, it's not as good. But I can imagine like in a movie theater that if you had this kind of interesting effects, it would be more noticeable.
Yeah, and they have a lot of plays in the movie when they have the equipment and they don't have the equipment.
Right.
They have that switch, and you really feel what they are thinking about or what they are feeling at that time.
If you want us to review any movies, let us know in the comments. And remember to like, share, subscribe, and see you next time. Bye.